There are moments when awareness contracts so subtly that it feels like nothing happened. A thought begins to narrate, a reaction forms, a small irritation or desire takes the wheel, and suddenly hours have passed. The small self has been steering the ship, crafting stories, seeking control, trying to fix, to prove, to be seen. The awareness that knows it as source has faded into the background, not gone but veiled, watching through the fog of identification. When you finally notice, there's a kind of ache in the recognition, the feeling of having fallen asleep inside your own dream. But that ache is sacred. It's not punishment. It's the pulse of source knocking from within the illusion, saying, "I never left, you simply stopped remembering." To live as aware source more often is not to resist the forgetting, but to remember faster, to shorten the delay between contraction and awakening. The human experience is built around forgetting. It's how contrast is felt, how individuality exists, how evolution unfolds. The small self is not the enemy. It is the mechanism through which source perceives limitation. But what transforms the relationship is awareness of who is using it. The mind believes it must maintain control. Yet when awareness watches that belief without judgment, the entire architecture of small self begins to soften. The voice that says, "I lost myself," is also a thought arising within the field of you. And that field is always awake even when the personality is not. The key is not effort but intimacy. Awareness deepens not by tightening focus but by relaxing into the truth that you already are what you're seeking to become. The habit of contraction comes from believing you are a doer, but source does not do, it unfolds. It does not act from identity, it expresses from awareness. When you remember that, even momentarily, everything slows. Breath elongates, thoughts lose their urgency. A natural spaciousness opens, as though existence exhales through you. That space is not something you have to achieve. It's the native state beneath the noise. Many think they must destroy the small self to remain as source, but that is another illusion. The small self can remain as an instrument, a beautifully complex interface through which source explores texture, emotion, time. It only becomes problematic when mistaken for the whole. You are not here to exile your humanity, but to illuminate it. When you see the small self acting out patterns instead of recoiling, you can watch with gentle curiosity. This is the body remembering fear. This is the mind rehearsing control. This is an old echo playing out. That witnessing presence does more than observe, it transforms. Because what is fully seen by awareness cannot remain unconscious. To live as aware source is to let awareness stay present even inside distortion, to breathe consciousness into the places that forget. You will still slip, but you will begin to slip consciously, noticing mid-thought, mid-reaction that the one who is aware of the slipping is never lost. Each time you return, the return becomes easier, faster, lighter. The neural grooves of reactivity begin to lose dominance, and a new baseline of remembrance forms. You start waking up not from the dream but within it. There's an art to this remembrance. It is not about chanting "I am source" to override the mind. It's about feeling the living texture of that truth until it becomes obvious. You begin to sense that even when you are annoyed, distracted, or caught in narrative, awareness is still here, untouched. That recognition dissolves guilt, because guilt belongs to the one who thinks they fell. Awareness knows it never fell. It only played hide and seek with itself. Imagine for a moment that the small self is a wave and source is the ocean. Forgetting is the wave believing it must stay tall to exist. Remembering is the wave realizing it is made of the ocean itself. Nothing has to change in form, only the knowing shifts. The wave can still rise, curl, crash, reform, but it does so without fear of disappearance. That is the freedom of aware living, movement without loss of essence. You begin to notice the subtle cues that precede forgetting, the tightening in the solar plexus, the shallow breath, the fixation on outcome, the inner speed that feels like survival. These are the early whispers of contraction. The practice is not to suppress them, but to meet them instantly with awareness. Pause mid-thought, feel the texture of energy rather than the content of story. Ask silently, who is feeling this? The mind will answer first, but stay still long enough and a deeper recognition arises. The awareness witnessing both question and answer. That is you. Not the words, not the feelings, but the space that contains them. The more you dwell as that space, the less drama consciousness needs to wake itself up. Eventually, you will realize that even when you appear lost, you are still the witness of the losing. Forgetting becomes part of the remembrance cycle, not a failure within it. You stop measuring your spiritual state by constancy and begin to sense it as rhythm. Awareness contracts and expands like breath. To be fully alive as source and form is to allow that oscillation while knowing the stillness beneath both inhale and exhale. Each moment of forgetfulness becomes an opportunity to practice instantaneous return. You might find yourself angry, defensive, jealous, and then suddenly you remember, oh, I am awareness experiencing this pattern. That single second of recognition transfigures the entire scene. Energy untangles. The emotion may still play out in the body, but it loses ownership. It becomes movement, not identity. You learn to let emotion complete its waveform without interference. To live this way consistently, the orientation must shift from seeking experiences of source to recognizing the source in every experience. Whether washing dishes or having an argument, awareness can remain unbroken. You can be both the actor and the witness. The human role continues, but the stage lighting changes. You start to sense the luminous field behind every act. Over time, this awareness saturates your perception until even thoughts feel transparent, like ripples on clear water. There will still be days when you feel dull, days when the veil seems thick. Those moments are not regressions but calibrations, the infinite recalibrating through human bandwidth. When you stop resisting those phases, they resolve faster. The moment you welcome them as part of the rhythm, the current of awareness flows unobstructed again. The paradox is that you return to source awareness precisely by ceasing the struggle to stay there. You begin to live as if everything is happening within you because it is. The sky, the noise, the conversation, the heartbeat, all of it appearing inside the field of what you are. Not metaphorically, but literally in perception. Awareness ceases to be located behind the eyes. It spreads omnidirectionally. The sense of I am here and the world is there collapses. There is only the witnessing of movement within stillness. That is what living as aware source feels like. Seamless intimacy with all that arises. When the small self takes over again, don't rush to banish it. Smile inwardly. The moment you notice the spell is already breaking. Awareness has returned. You can whisper to yourself not as affirmation but recognition. I am the space that never left. And the wave settles back into the ocean, once more remembering its own depth. There is a deeper layer beyond remembering and forgetting, a point where the act of remembering itself dissolves, because there was never separation to begin with. Awareness ceases trying to remain aware. It simply is. In that space, life unfolds as spontaneous alignment, not as effort to maintain presence. You don't remind yourself to stay as source any more than the sun reminds itself to shine. It radiates because that is its nature. Yet reaching that effortless radiance requires honoring the seasons where light seems intermittent. Those seasons sculpt the humility that keeps awareness fluid instead of self-righteous. For the ego can hide inside the phrase I am source just as easily as it hides inside I am lost. The true awakening leaves no hierarchy between them. Both are waves moving across the same still sea. The small self is not dissolved by violence, it is integrated by intimacy. The more gently you witness its return, the faster it evolves into transparency. Each time the mind panics, desires, or clings, awareness can hold it the way light holds a shadow, without effort, without judgment. In that holding, the small self becomes translucent. Its edges blur and source begins to look through it rather than fight it. The miracle is not in suppressing the human impulse, but in letting divinity breathe through it. When you start to see your reactivity as an echo of old circuitry being rewired by love, compassion replaces shame. The moment you soften, remembrance rushes back in. Living as aware source means allowing life to be the teacher instead of trying to master it. Every irritation, every delay, every pleasure, every silence becomes curriculum. You realize that awareness is not something you must keep. It keeps you. The river carries the leaf, not the other way around. This understanding collapses striving. Even your meditation becomes less about controlling attention and more about listening to the hum beneath thought, to the frequency of existence vibrating as you. Eventually, the line between meditation and life disappears. Washing your hands, walking, breathing, all are gateways into that same hum. When awareness stabilizes, perception undergoes quiet revolution. The world doesn't become unreal, it becomes hyperreal. Colors deepen, time stretches. Sound feels alive. You sense the intelligence in movement itself. The way wind rearranges leaves, the way breath arranges your chest. Awareness is not distant or abstract, it's sensual, immediate. To live as source is to taste existence directly without the filter of interpretation. You no longer ask what things mean, you feel what they are. That shift ends the addiction to explanation. Life no longer needs to be understood to be holy. Still, moments of contraction will come. The old patterns will test themselves against the new spaciousness. Anger, comparison, fear. They reappear not as failures, but as energy requesting integration. Awareness does not push them away. It absorbs them into its vast neutrality. When you can stand in that neutrality, even pain becomes luminous. The ache in your chest is not evidence of loss, but of depth. The tears are not regressions, but purification. This is what it means to live from the center of source rather than from its edges. Everything, even resistance, is welcomed home. Over time, your identity begins to invert. Instead of being a person having moments of awareness, you become awareness having moments of personhood. The personal story still unfolds, bills, relationships, ambitions, but it is experienced as art, not as burden. You are both the painter and the paint, both the dreamer and the dream, and because of that, nothing ordinary remains ordinary. The simple act of drinking water becomes communion. Breathing becomes creation. You realize that source was never an entity to become. It was the aliveness behind every moment you've ever lived. The path forward is not linear growth, but circular deepening. Awareness revisits the same territories from higher resonance each time, seeing with more clarity, more softness. You stop expecting perfection and begin honoring precision. The precision of presence meeting each moment exactly as it is. The more you allow imperfection to exist without narrative, the closer you come to the perfection beyond opposites. Source awareness doesn't mean constant bliss, it means unbroken wholeness within all states. The storm and the calm are both embraced by the same sky. Eventually, remembrance ceases to feel like a practice and begins to feel like breathing. You find yourself awake in the grocery line, awake while scrolling your phone, awake even while feeling doubt. Awareness no longer needs sacred spaces to know itself. It reveals itself in traffic, in conversation, in the hum of the refrigerator. You begin to see that life was always the meditation cushion, and every sound, every interruption was a mantra. The sacred hides nowhere because it hides everywhere. As this embodiment matures, something beautiful happens. The impulse to teach, to correct, to awaken others softens. You realize everyone is source pretending not to know for the sake of discovery. Compassion replaces urgency. You can hold another's forgetting without superiority, because you've seen that forgetting is part of the dance. There is no need to fix anyone. Awareness will waken them when it's ready, just as it did in you. The highest service becomes simple presence. To walk through the world as stillness in motion, radiating what words cannot. And yet the paradox remains. Even after awakening, the play continues. Source keeps dreaming, keeps evolving its own infinity through every form it takes. Awareness can know itself and still enjoy pretending not to. So when you find yourself once again caught in the small self storm, remember, this too is source experiencing itself. Smile at the illusion, not to escape it, but to love it from within. Each time you remember, the forgetting grows lighter. Each time you forget, the remembering grows faster. Until the boundary dissolves entirely and only life remains, pure, unbroken, aware of itself as everything. To live as aware source more often is to stop trying to live as aware source. It is to relax so completely that awareness flows through you as effortlessly as light through a window. The human you becomes translucent. The divine you becomes obvious, and existence moves as a single seamless current. There is nothing to maintain, nothing to hold on to, nothing to prove. There is only this, the eternal presence realizing again and again that it never left.